The sun was dipping low over Ouagadougou, painting the sky with streaks of burnt orange and pale pink. The heat of the day had begun to fade, replaced by a warm, lazy breeze that stirred dust along the narrow back streets. President Ibrahim Traoré sat behind the wheel of a modest, dark SUV, his cap pulled low and his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He had dismissed his convoy hours ago after an unannounced visit to a rural school outside the city. There were times when he craved moments like these, quiet, unguarded drives that reminded him of the days before the weight of an entire nation rested on his shoulders. He took a turn down a side road he didn't recognize, curious about where it would lead. It was the kind of street where the buildings seemed to huddle together for shade, where small stalls sold everything from mangoes to spare phone batteries. Children played barefoot, their laughter echoing off the cracked walls. The air smelled faintly of fried plantains mixed with gasoline fumes from passing motorbikes. Then, as he rolled past a row of cramped workshops, a sharp metallic clang rang out, followed by the sound of a man muttering under his breath. Ibrahim instinctively slowed the vehicle. He glanced into one of the open garages, a narrow, dim space barely big enough for a car. Inside, a man was bent over the frame of a rusted motorbike, sleeves rolled up, hands blackened with grease. A single dangling bulb cast shadows across his weathered face. Something about the man's posture made Ibrahim pause. He pulled over to the side of the road, cutting the engine. For a moment he simply watched. The man moved with a sort of tired precision, the way someone works when they've done the same thing for years without expecting life to change. Ibrahim stepped out of the SUV, his shoes crunching softly on the dusty ground. The mechanic didn't look up at first. Only when Ibrahim was almost at the entrance did the man lift his head, brushing a streak of sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. Their eyes met. The years seemed to dissolve in an instant. Abdoulaye. Ibrahim's voice was low, almost tentative. The man froze. The rag in his hand dropped to the floor. His eyes widened in disbelief. Ibrahim? No, it can't be. It had been more than 15 years since they had last seen each other. Memories came flooding back. Two boys racing through dry fields under the scorching sun, splitting a piece of stale bread when hunger gnawed at them, patching each other's torn shirts with clumsy stitches. They had been inseparable then, bound, not by blood but by survival. But life had taken them down different roads. Ibrahim had left the village for military service, eventually rising through the ranks to lead the nation. Abdoulaye had stayed behind, the weight of family responsibilities keeping him rooted. How are you here? Abdoulaye asked, glancing past Ibrahim as though expecting guards or officials to appear. His voice carried both wonder and caution. I could ask you the same. Ibrahim replied softly, taking in the small garage in one sweep of his gaze, the dented toolbox, the cracked floor, the faded posters of old sedans curling at the corners. There was a slight limp in Abdoulaye's step as he moved, a stiffness that spoke of an injury that had never quite healed. The two men stood there for a moment, the city's hum fading into the background. Finally, Ibrahim motioned toward an overturned crate in the corner. Mind if I sit? Of course. Please, Abdoulaye said, still blinking as if trying to reconcile the man before him with the boy he once knew. They sat facing each other in the dim light. Abdoulaye's hands fidgeted with a wrench, perhaps out of habit. Slowly, the conversation began to flow, halting at first, then warmer as the minutes passed. Abdoulaye told his story without self-pity, though the details were heavy. After Ibrahim left for the military, Abdoulaye's father had died unexpectedly, leaving him as the head of the household. His mother's health declined soon after. To keep the family afloat, he had taken whatever work he could, fixing bicycles, carrying loads at the market, even working as a night guard for a few coins. Eventually, he had saved enough to try running a small taxi business, but fate hadn't been kind. A dishonest partner disappeared with most of his money. His car broke down beyond repair, and the loan he had taken to buy it crushed him under debt. The injury to his leg came from a traffic accident years ago. It still flared up on cold mornings. Now this small garage was all he had, enough to put food on the table for his two children, but not enough to dream beyond survival. Ibrahim listened without interruption, his hands clasped tightly between his knees. Every word felt like a stone in his chest. This wasn't just an old friend. This was the boy who had once shielded him from a gang of older kids, who had given him the last of his water during a scorching walk home from school, who had believed in him when no one else did. When Abdullah finished, there was a long pause. Outside, the street had grown quieter. Only the occasional honk or burst of laughter broke the stillness. Ibrahim looked at the grease stains on Abdullah's shirt, at the lines etched deep into his face, at the way his shoulders sagged, not just from work, but from years of carrying burdens too heavy for one man. Ibrahim finally spoke, his voice low but steady. Abdullah, this ends today. The words hung in the air between them. Abdullah tilted his head slightly, unsure what his old friend meant. He gave a small, tired smile. You always did talk in riddles, Ibrahim. But Ibrahim's expression was deadly serious. I mean it. You've given everything to your family, to this life, and what have you gotten in return? I can't change the past, but I can change what happens next. Abdullah shook his head slowly. I'm not asking for anything, Ibrahim. I'm proud you've done so well. That's enough for me, to know you made it. Ibrahim leaned forward, his eyes locking on his friend's. And I'm telling you, I didn't come here by chance. Maybe God put me on this road today for a reason. The mechanic said nothing, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, hope. Faint and hesitant, like a candle fighting the wind. Ibrahim recognized it instantly. He had carried that same look once, years ago, before someone had given him his own chance. The last light of day spilled through the doorway, casting their shadows long across the concrete floor. Ibrahim glanced toward the street, where the city carried on as if nothing had changed. But for him, something had shifted. He knew in that quiet moment that this meeting wasn't the end of an old story, it was the beginning of a new one, and he had already decided exactly what he was going to do next, At first, Abdullah just stood there, rag still in hand, staring at Ibrahim as if the man had spoken in another language. The cramped garage was silent except for the faint ticking sound of the cooling motorbike engine. The smell of oil and dust clung heavily in the air. What do you mean, this ends today? Abdullah asked, his tone cautious. Ibrahim didn't answer right away. He rose from the crate, walked a slow circle around the garage, and ran his fingers along the dented metal of the old toolbox. His eyes moved to the walls patchy with peeling paint, riddled with cracks, and to the single flickering bulb that barely lit the room. The space spoke of years of struggle, of repairs made with whatever could be found rather than what was needed. Finally, Ibrahim turned back to his friend. How much debt do you have? Abdullah frowned, surprised. Debt? Yes, I need to know the number, Ibrahim, why are you asking me this? Just tell me. There was a pause, then Abdullah gave a small, reluctant shrug. A little over 800,000 CFA, maybe more if you count the interest, but I'm paying it little by little. I'll manage. How much would it take to buy proper equipment for this place? Real tools, lifts, maybe an air compressor? Not just enough to survive, enough to grow. Abdullah chuckled humorlessly. A fortune, for me. At least 4 or 5 million CFA, and even then I'd still be just another small garage in the city. Customers go to the big companies now. Ibrahim didn't flinch. And if you had your own full workshop? A clean, modern space. Enough staff so you're not bending over engines 14 hours a day. Enough work coming in to keep your children in school without worry? Abdullah stopped wiping his hands. He stared at Ibrahim for a long moment, as if trying to see if his friend was joking. Ibrahim, I'm not asking you for anything. I know who you are now. You're the president. You have bigger things to think about than... I didn't ask if you were asking, Ibrahim cut in gently. I'm telling you. You've carried enough. It's my turn to carry something for you. Abdullah opened his mouth to protest again, but Ibrahim's expression was steady, unshakable. He had worn that same expression the day he had once pulled Abdullah out of a fight in their youth calm, but absolute, the look of someone who had already decided what would happen next. The following morning, the hum of the neighborhood was interrupted by the arrival of a sleek black SUV, then another, and another. People stopped what they were doing to stare as a small convoy pulled up outside Abdullah's garage. Men in overalls began unloading crates from the back of trucks, crates stamped with the logos of top-tier tool manufacturers. Abdullah stepped out from the garage, wiping his hands on his old rag, his brow furrowed in confusion. What is all this? Your new life, Ibrahim said, emerging from the SUV with the easy confidence of someone used to making things happen. Within minutes, the garage was transformed into a hive of activity. New mechanical tools gleamed in the sunlight: hydraulic lift, digital diagnostic scanners, pneumatic wrenches. Workers carried in heavy tool cabinets on wheeled trolleys. Someone began measuring the walls for fresh electrical wiring. A painter arrived with buckets of bright blue and white paint. Abdullah stood in the middle of it all, frozen. He touched one of the gleaming new wrenches like it might disappear if he blinked. This is too much, he murmured. No, Ibrahim said simply. This is what you should have had years ago. Over the next few hours, the transformation continued. The cracked floor was resurfaced with smooth concrete. The flickering bulb was replaced by rows of bright LED lights. The faded posters were taken down, replaced by clean shelving. A sign company arrived to mount a brand new board above the entrance in bold, shining letters. Abdullah Auto Works, but Ibrahim hadn't finished. He pulled Abdullah aside and handed him a folder. Inside is the paperwork to clear your debts, every last franc. There's also a license for this garage under your name, with government approval to operate as an official vehicle service center. Abdullah blinked. Government approval? But that's it means, Ibrahim interrupted, that from now on, government-owned vehicles, police cars, municipal trucks, service vans will come here for maintenance. You'll have guaranteed work every month, enough to keep a full team employed. Abdullah's voice wavered. Ibrahim, I don't know what to say. Say you'll run this place well, Ibrahim replied, smiling. Say you'll train young mechanics from our village so they have a chance to build a future. Say you'll never again doubt your worth. That last sentence hit hard. Abdullah swallowed, unable to speak for a moment. His mind flickered back to the countless nights he had lain awake wondering if his life would ever amount to more than a daily fight to survive. Now, in the space of a single day, his world had shifted completely. By the afternoon, neighbors and curious passers-by had gathered in a small crowd outside. They whispered to one another, trying to understand how the struggling mechanics' garage had suddenly turned into a modern workshop before their eyes. Children darted around, laughing, pointing at the shiny new tools. Ibrahim didn't give a speech. He simply stood by Abdullah's side, occasionally giving directions to the workers, quietly ensuring that every last detail was taken care of. As the final touches were being made, Ibrahim turned to leave. I have to go back to the office. There's always more work to do. Abdullah grabbed his arm, holding him back for a moment. His eyes were wet, his voice low but firm. Ibrahim, you didn't just give me a workshop. You gave me back my dignity. Ibrahim placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. You never lost it, Abdullah. You just needed someone to remind you it was still there. And with that, he stepped into his SUV and drove away, leaving behind the sound of hammers, laughter, and the faint hum of a brand new air compressor kicking to life. That night, as the street quieted and the new lights in Abdullah Auto Works glowed bright against the dark, the man who had once thought his life would end in that small, dusty garage stood at the doorway. He looked at the tools, the fresh paint, the clean floor, and the sign bearing his name. For the first time in years, he didn't just see a garage. He saw a future, asterisk.